Hello, everybody. This is George Anastasopoulos, and I'm welcoming you at our PGLA webinar for this month. The topic today is going to be how to be audited. I can see many people are still registering, still joining. So I'm going to give 2 more minutes so that everybody can join. Yeah. So once again, hello and welcome to our course, How to be Audited, our today's webinar. Although you can see on my PowerPoint that it says turn your next accreditation assessment into a positive experience, this course is not only about accreditation. Whatever we're going to say today applies also to certification audits and in general to all management system audits. So there are some good advices and practices on how to be audited. Usually, most of the seminars are talking about how to become an auditor, how to perform an audit. And this is one of my favorite webinars I provide because we go to the other side of the river and we are examining how we are prepared to accept an audit. And this is very important because, to tell you the truth, if you are not a professional auditor or assessor, most of your time in the management system world, you are accepting audits. So it is very useful, I believe, to be aware and know how to accept audits. Of course, before we start the presentation, I would like to introduce myself. I was just getting some more time because I see more and more people are joining. So I didn't want to start the presentation with people joining. So once again, welcome to all of you. My name is George Anastasopoulos, and I am the PGLA Technical and International Business Development Manager. I am auditor and assessor of management systems for more than 30 years. And I welcome you to our presentation today. But also let me introduce PGLA. PGLA is Perry Johnson Laboratory Accreditation. It is an accreditation body, one of the big 4 American accreditation bodies established in 1999 in Troy, Michigan. We provide accreditations all over the world and in more than 32 countries, more than 2,200 accreditations in all the main accreditation standards. You can see here the standards on the right. On the left, you can see many recognitions that PGLA got from different regulators in the United States. And this is very important point because if you want to export or sell in the United States and you must comply, your products must comply to specific regulations, you can contact us. You can contact me at PGLA to discuss how your testing or how your inspections and the product certification can comply to those requirements. So let's go to our topic. So why this webinar today is important and why I also like it very much. So we all know that in all types of management systems and certification level, but also in accreditation level, we have to go through audits, assessments. So, and from our experience, even me that I'm working, as I told you, 30 years as many years ago as a certification auditor and the last 20 years as accreditation auditor, through an assessment, we stress some, we feel some stress. And you're going to ask, okay, you are an assessment, you are an accreditation auditor. Why do you feel stressed? Because you are auditing, you are not accepting audits. That's not true. Even as an accreditation body, we are being audited, peer evaluated by the APAC, for example, that we belong, which is the Asian Pacific Accreditation Cooperation. And in order to support our MLA, we have to accept very long and demanding evaluations every few years. So in whatever level you are in the pyramid of conformity assessment, you're going to experience assessments, audits, being assessed, being audited, and you are going to feel this stress. and this pressure during the assessment. Also, there is a fear of nonconformities. People believe that the nonconformities can affect their own personal efficiency and so on. And also, an uncertainty what the auditors and the assessors want, and feeling that sometimes you are judged. So this webinar exists because most people may be trained as auditors, but they are not trained on how to be audited. So I believe that this webinar today will be very helpful to you. And before we start with the actual, let's say, presentation, I would like to stay on terminology. And I would like to clarify, because I already used a few times mixed auditor, assessor, assessment, auditor. Is there any difference? What is audit? What is assessment? What is auditor versus the assessor? So actually, auditor and assessor are the very similar. People in audit and assessment are very similar processes. The auditor operates at the certification level and evaluates whether an organization management system complies to the requirements of a standard like ISO 9001, 14001, and so on. And usually auditors either perform work for certification bodies, either work for organizations as internal auditors to perform internal audits, or they perform second-party audits to the suppliers of the organization against, again, the requirements of management systems. The assessor performs in a very similar way, but on the accreditation level, and he evaluates the technical competence of the conformity assessment bodies. What are the conformity assessment bodies? They are testing laboratories, they are calibration laboratories, medical inspection bodies, product certification, personnel certification, and so on. So when you are auditing on the level of certification, we usually use the term auditor. When you are working on the level of accreditation, we are using the word assessor. In both cases, we focus on processes, implementation, control, and the effectiveness of the management system. So the work of the auditor and assessor is exactly the same, just the level is different. So for this course today, I'm going to use those terms interchangeably. It means either I say auditor, you can think assessor. If I say assessment, you can think audit. Just understand that because I work for an accreditation body, I initially planned the course on the level of assessment, that as an accreditation body, we assess conformity assessment bodies, but the same, whatever I'm going to say, applies also to the level of certification. So don't get confused about that, and comfortable to intermix the terms auditor and assessor, audit and assessment, and nothing wrong can be done. So what makes assessment first stressful? So before we find out what to do, let's see the root cause of the problem. So the first thing is that during an audit and assessment, we have the presence of an external authority. And the critical word here is authority, because it is something who comes, and actually we depend on them because their decision may lead to certification or accreditation and so on. So we feel that somebody who is higher than us is going to check us. And even if the whole process is about checking, auditing, assessing processes or procedures, at the end we are people. And there are people who come to check, audit our work as a person. So this fear of exposing weakness is always there. And the other problem can also become even worse if we think that we don't have a good understanding of the assessment flow. So if we are not trained as auditors, or we didn't attend a course like this one today, and we are not sure what is going to happen. So that's a big issue that creates uncertainty. And you know, when there is uncertainty, then fear comes in. And then we don't know exactly what are the assessor expectations. We don't know those people. Sometimes, yes, when you are in the reassessment process or the re-audit, you know, and if the assessors are the same, then they are more expected. You know the people, you know the characters, but if they are new, you are not aware. So again, another element of uncertainty is added to the fear element and so on. Plus also the organizational culture. I've been in audits. I perform audits in many different areas of the world, and believe me, the culture is dramatically different. There are areas that the people are afraid that if non-conformities will be found, they will be blamed personally, and maybe they will be even punished from their management, their own management, not the auditors or the assessors. So then the pressure becomes much higher level. I've been in audits, they tell me, please, Dr. George, try to reduce the number on, don't mention specific departments because we will be punished from the management. So those are things that are not related to the culture of modern management system audit or assessment, but they are there. And sometimes they are organic. They are not related to the management system, but to the local cultures. So this can make the whole situation even worse. And the last point that can create uncertainty and make the assessment stressful is that past negative experience with other ABs or conformity assessment bodies, or even same AB or same certification body with different auditors. So this can create, all this can add up in the problem and make the assessment stressful. Let's now go to find out what is the real purpose of the assessment or of the audit. Okay, so the trained auditors or assessors, they are trained that they have to ensure competence of the system, competence of the processes, and competence of the people, without though assessing the people as we do in the personnel certification, for example. They have to check the impartiality issues. Impartiality is related to many different standards, especially on the accreditation level. So you will notice that if we are, we notice that if there is a requirement of impartiality, that there is a requirement of impartiality in all accreditation standards, this requirement is not so strong on certification level. Consistency of the process. So as assessors, we are trained how to ensure that the conformity assessment bodies are operating in a consistent way. So they are implementing their processes, their procedures in a consistent way throughout the operation, not only the moment of the assessment, but also throughout the period between the reassessment, that it can be 1, 2 years, whatever. Technical validity of the results. So whatever results are provided by the conformity assessment body should be technically valid and correct. Market confidence and compliance in general to the management system requirements. In the case of accreditation, it can be any standard of 17,000 series of standards, but there is also the same logic on the certification level that compliance is against to all the management system standards like ISO 9000, 14,000, plus additional requirements that they may be set by legislation, regulators, and so on, or the company itself, the conformity assessment body or the company itself. So all those are the things we want to ensure. Now, what is not the assessment? Also, this is very important to understand. Both auditors and both auditees, they should know that assessor is not about policing. We have auditors that they have been working for governments in many areas of the world, and then they performed inspections, government inspections, and so on. And the whole mentality is much more tougher in the process, and they have to police the process. It's wrong. So when we are performing a management system, either audit or assessment, we are not policing anybody. What we do is what is on the left side of the column. We check about compliance. Also, purpose of the assessment is not to punish anybody. So it's not actually during an audit, during an assessment, we're not assessing the people or if they're good or not. We're not evaluating them. We are evaluating the processes, and in any case, even there are non-conformities, the purpose is not to punish anybody. The purpose is to identify the root cause of the problem and correct it. And I remember a few years ago, I was in an area of the world that they told me, the manager told me, Dr. George, if you find the problem, tell me, and we will punish the person. So I had to spend half an hour to explain to the management organization that my audit was not about punishing anybody. It was about identifying problems, if there are problems, And in that case, the management responsibility was not again to punish anybody, but was to identify why they didn't perform. And many times, although at the first level, you see, oh, we didn't perform because George did not perform his process correctly, but George maybe did not perform his process in a correct way because he was not trained appropriately how to do it. And he was not trained because the management did not provide the resources, or they didn't think how to train the person. So at the end, the real problem was not George, was not the employee, it was the management that it didn't thought to provide the appropriate resources or to train the people appropriately and so on. So we have to be very careful. Punishment is never the purpose of the assessment or the audit. Then perfection checking. Okay, when we're performing an assessment or an audit against a management system, we are not auditing to the top. We don't have the top expectation of the best company we have ever seen on conformity assessment body. The real level is set by the standards. So the level of compliance is decided by the standard, the management system standard, and the processes and the procedures of the organization and so on. So perfection is not our scope of the audit, of the assessment, just simple compliance to the requirements of the product, of the management system, and of the company procedures. Also, consultation. When you are audited, you should not expect consultation. And sometimes the auditors, in order to be good and so on, they provide some. It's not the business of the auditor to provide consultation. It's not your business as an auditee to ask consultation. I know the temptation is very big, because when you understand or you have a feeling that an auditor may issue a problem or there is non-conformity, you may ask, okay, and what I have to do? And this is a very critical point, because at this moment there is a big temptation for the auditor to provide consultation because he knows or she knows, okay, because it's experience and so on. But always remember, third-party audit, and we're talking about certification audit or accreditation assessments, consultation is not part of the game. Issuing non-conformities, also this is very important, and you may be surprised. The purpose of the assessment or the purpose of the certification audit is not to issue non-conformities, is to verify compliance. And as I say, as auditor and assessor for many years, I will be very happy not to find conformities, not because I hide them, but because the company is operating on a level that they fully comply to the requirements. So we don't go as auditors to issue non-conformities, and as an auditee, you should know that, and you should not be afraid. Also, it is important to know that the non-conformities are issued only when we find lack of conformity. So as an assessor, I will always assume that my client, when I'm going to audit, or the auditee is complying to the standard. So I am not going to the assessment with a purpose, oh, I have to issue a few non-conformities to show that I did my job to my accreditation body. This is not correct. And you may ask, but it is reasonable, some auditors or assessors, to think that if they issue non-conformities, they will show that they did their job. No, it's not their job to issue non-conformities. And secondly, and most importantly, the way that an auditor and an assessor is going to show to his organization that they did their job is not the number of non-conformities, but it is his notes on the checklist. So in the checklist, there is space that the auditor or the assessor, they're going to put their findings, not a yes and no, not an okay, but a real wording of the finding of conformity. So I'm going to check a record. I'm going to say I checked calibration record number 1, 2, 3, date number, everything was complete. So that's enough. That's enough for my accreditation body to see that I did check that clause and that there is evidence of compliance, and this evidence of compliance is documented, recording on my checklist. So they don't expect me to issue non-conformity to find this out, okay? So even the conformities should be documented, but it's not something that it will be shared with you as an auditee, but it is something that it is shared between the auditor and the assessor with their certification or accreditation body. So, and finally, the assessment or the audit is not a bureaucratic exercise. We're not going there to just check documents and find out all the records, but we want to see the so-called process compliance, that the processes of the auditee are implemented. So I spent some more time than expected on this PowerPoint because I believe that this is really important, what it is to be expected and not what is not expected. And at the end, I would like to summarize saying that the assessment or the audit is a trust-building mechanism, mechanism between the auditor and the auditee. So the auditee should not be afraid to talk and openly communicate with the auditor. There's no reason to do that. Assessors, therefore, are looking for reliable processes, competent personnel, repeatable outcomes, objective decision-making, controlled documentation, and again, I repeat, compliance to the requirements. And assessors, don't worry, they don't look to blame anybody. They are not looking for perfection. They don't want to catch people out. Oh, I did caught you. Oh, you didn't do that. No, it's not the mentality of the auditor of the assessor. They are not looking for personal weaknesses. The assessors are not expected to trick or surprise the auditee. So don't be afraid as an auditee that somebody is going to trick you. It will not happen. Or they are not there to prove how intelligent and how knowledgeable they are and how many things they know. So it's not a personal show-off exercise, the audit or the assessment. Again, the whole process is about building confidence, verify competence, and strengthen trust between the auditor and the auditee. Now, I'm going to give you some advices as an auditee, what to do to achieve a much better process during the audit or the assessment. The first thing is that in general, it's not only about step one, be prepared. So being prepared means that you know what to expect. And you know what to expect in many different ways. The first thing is the management system requirement, the standard that you are implementing, because technically the auditor or the assessor is going to check against this standard. So if you go through the standard and you are trained in the standard you apply, either it is 9001 or 17025, whatever, you will see that the standard has many specific document requirements. So they say, oh, you should have a record about this, or you should have a documented process about that. So if you go through the standard, you can prepare a list of all the documented requirements. And why is this important? Because the auditors and the assessors were going to ask to see that. Because whenever there is a requirement for documentation, either through a record or through a documented procedure or whatever, it is an objective evidence for the auditor and the assessor that you prepare that and you comply to the standard. And it is an easy one to see, because the checking a process is more difficult, because you have the assessor, the auditor has to understand the process. And he may spend a long time to do that. But asking for a record and asking for a documented procedure or whatever process that it is required by the standard is the easy step to do. And it is always expected. So you have to check that you are ready to provide all the requested documentation by the management system. Also, your organization may introduce some additional documentation that it could be done also checked, because it is very easy for the auditor and the assessor reading your procedures or your SOPs to find out what records and what documentation is required. Then he's going to ask for that. So you have to be sure that all these documents are under control. If there are requirements for records, all these are completed. So there is implementation, maintained records. There are, for example, there is requirement to trace the temperature and the humidity on the production area or in the testing area. You should have all these logs, okay, ready, updated, and also understood by the staff. So whenever there is a requirement, it's not only, you are not only audited if you are quality manager, for example. The assessor and the auditor is going to talk to the people in the process control, in the quality control, and the different departments of the organization. So he's expecting that all the people who are performing their jobs, they know what records or what other documentation they have to maintain. So be well prepared and check it. Now, if it is possible, and you can get the checklist of the accreditation body or the certification body, do it. I don't mean steal it. I mean, ask for it. For example, in PGLA, our checklists are public domain. So if you're going to be accredited by PGLA as a testing laboratory or inspection body, if you go to our website, you can download our checklist. And this is very important. First, it has to do about openness. We don't hide anything from our clients, but the most important for you, when you're going to be audited by the certification body or the accreditation body, if you have the checklist, you will know what they will check. And usually the checklist include all the requirements for the documentation. So it is ready work for you. So you can self-evaluate your system by completing the checklist of your auditing organization, whoever it is, certification body or accreditation. Now, if you cannot find that, or there's a policy of such a body that they don't provide the checklist, you have to do it by yourself. It can be your internal audit checklist, definitely, but also it can be a very simple one-page list or two-pages list with all the documentation requirements of the standard. So be sure that you are prepared for that, and you check that all your documents are well prepared and fully completed. Now, demonstrating competence, step number 2. In addition to be prepared, okay, you have to be ready to reply to yourself before the audit and before the assessment to some questions of, if you are asked what you are doing, what job you are doing, what process you are performing, you should be in position to reply. And you know it is important that you have to prepare also your staff. Remember that don't expect that only the auditor or the assessor will talk only with you if you are the quality manager. They would like to interview many different people in all the levels of your organization. So they have to be in position to explain what they are doing. In reality, the auditor and the assessor is asking, what is your process? What process are you performing? And definitely you should be aware and you should know what is the process. Or to similar question is, why are you doing it this way? I'm doing it this way because my procedure says, or my SOP describes how to perform my test in quality control or whatever in the testing lab. So there is a specific reason why you do something, because you were trained like this, because your processes or your procedures or your SOPs require that. So, but you should know why you do that, okay? It's not only it happens like this, it's not happened by a miracle. Whatever it happens in a company, in an organization, there is a management system, a structured management system that defines the way how to perform your operations and perform your duties. So you should know what you're doing and why you're doing. Also, if they ask you, okay, you're performing this process, is there a procedure? Is there an SOP? Who requires that? Okay, very similar to why, but this is about what, okay? Then you should be answered to that. Yes, I'm performing my test according to the standard ASTM XYZ. Oh, I'm performing my test according to my internal procedure SOP 103. So there should be some process, and behind each process, there are usually procedures and SOPs and so on. If there are, you should be aware of them, okay? And also you should have access to them. So because if you reply to me as an assessor, when I'm assessing you, oh yes, I performed this test to ASTM XYZ, I'm going to ask you, do you have access to this? So, to this standard, I mean. So, one is supporting the other. And also, how do you know that you have to make this check and so on? Again, the assessor is trying to perform a check that you are aware of your process. So, it's not a personal quiz for you. He's not trying to judge you, okay? He's not trying to evaluate you, but he's just trying to understand, the auditor, that you are aware of the applicable processes, procedures, and so on. So all this is very, very important. So how you will achieve that? You have to train your people. So the same way I'm training you now, providing you this webinar about how to be audited, also you have to train your people, if you are quality manager or the management of your organization, how your people should be prepared for audits. It's very important, okay? Not only how you will perform an audit, but how they will. And you know, it is very nice because if you do this training for the your certification audit or your accreditation, this also applies for your internal audits, because when you perform your internal audits, you should act the same way, and your people should be prepared to reply to the same way. So the same logic applies to all types of certification and accreditation audits and assessments respectively. Now, when you are communicating with the auditor or the assessor, they may ask you questions, okay? But what is important to you, and I want you to pay attention to what I'm going to say now. First, be concise on your replies. You don't have to say the whole story of your life. You know, because the auditor has a specific time allocated for your department, and he cannot spend more time because he will be out of schedule. So you have to reply to what they ask you and be concise to what they ask you. Also, if whatever they ask you is supported by documented evidence. So if they ask you, for example, how do you control the temperature? You say, okay, I control the temperature through the log, and I have also the temperature log. Here it is. So documented evidence is always helping you and is helping the auditor and the assessor to finalize his understanding of your process and proceed to the next step. Admit if you are unsure. Don't say, sorry for the expression, nonsense, okay? If you don't know the answer, you can say, I'm not aware of that, let me check my procedure. So you are audited, you are not sure about, sometimes when I audit laboratories, the testing process is very complex and the standards are very complex. So if I ask something, okay, during the preparation, how do you handle that? He may not remember. It's not okay. Don't tell me something that is not correct. Just tell me, reply to your auditor and say, I don't remember this moment. Let me check my SOP. Let me check my standard. Take it from yourself and find it and find, okay, yes, the treatment temperature should be between 30 and 40 degrees Celsius. So that's fine. You don't have to remember. If you can trace it and you can find and give me the information based on your SOPs, it's great with me, so it's no problem. I'm not expecting as an assessor or as an auditor for you to remember and know everything. That's why we have SOPs. That's why we have the standards available at the area of processes, performing the process, even it is in an ISO 9000 production area or quality control or in a testing lab or a product certification. You don't have to remember everything. So admit that you don't remember, that you're not sure, but show to the auditor that you know how to find it. Also, if you don't understand something, sometimes we are not also, all the auditors and the assessors were not so perfect, especially sometimes English or whatever language is not our first language. So if you don't understand what they are asking you, ask for a clarification. It's not bad. You don't have to show that you understand everything. So you can ask the auditor, the assessor, please, can you reply or can you rephrase? I'm not sure what you are asking. Do it. This will help you, okay? And in any case, stay calm and factual. There's no reason to be afraid of anything, and there's no reason to lose your temper. Okay, so what all this advice is going to do is similarly to not guess, not over-explain, not getting defensive, because they never attack to you or the questions are not personal from the auditors or the assessor. Don't talk too much. Okay, be concise always. Don't make promises on the spot, and be careful. The next one is very important. Don't reply if you're not asked, because sometimes you want to show goodwill, and the auditor says, "Okay, can I see that?" And you can say, "Oh, we also have that, and we also." Don't say that. It's not that you don't know. What is happening is first you increase the sampling. Increasing the sampling, there is a higher probability for problem. Okay. Secondly, don't reply to things they are not asking you, because you spent their time, okay? So don't reply if you are not asked. Only reply to the things you are asked. That's from my experience, okay? It will help both sides. It will help both you, and we will help the assessor. Don't reply to whatever comes to your mind, or because you know more things. There's no reason to show that, okay? And because you believe that your company has a very good management system and you have many more things to show, just show them only if you are asked, okay? And the last advice for you is don't respond instead of others. So you are the quality manager. I'm sure that you know very well your system. And when the auditor is asking an employee, don't jump in and say, oh, yes, we do like this. This is very bad process. And the auditor may be kind and say nothing 1, 2, 3 times, but he's expecting to get the reply by the person who is asking. And the reason is not because he's judging the person, but because you want to see if the processes are well understood and implemented by all people. So if you jump in all the time as quality manager to provide the answers, it's a very bad practice, and don't bring the auditor or the assessor on the unpleasant moment, say, please, can you only reply only when you are asked for? So think about it. Very important, the communication, very important on how to build bridges of communication and avoid unnecessary mistakes. Now, the next topic I would like to talk about is about non-conformities. Very important point. Most of the people, when we are audited, we believe that non-conformities means failure. And if we have non-conformities or many non-conformities, it means we didn't perform well. No, it may be true, but it may not be true. And in any case, the mentality of the well-trained auditors and assessors is that, as I explained you before, we are not looking for non-conformities. We are looking for conformities. And if we cannot find conformities, we have non-conformities. But also remember that if there are non-conformities, it is better to find them out before your clients find them out. I'm going to repeat them. When a non-conformity is identified during a certification audit or an accreditation audit, it does not at the end affect the stage, the image of the organization in the market, because you will correct it and you will be fine. But if the clients find your non-conformity, you are in trouble, because you may lose business and also you may lose face and you may lose markets. So it is very important to understand that if there are problems in your processes, it is better to be identified from the certification or accreditation body than hide them under the carpet. And then when they will be found out, it will be a big trouble for the organization. So for this reason, and this is the only way that you may consider accreditation or certification as an indirect type of consulting, through non-conformities, you identify your weak points and you are correcting them before the clients find out. Very, very important to remember that. So they are the non-conformities, real opportunities to strengthen your processes, to become a better company, okay? And what I'm explaining you now also provides is an evidence of a mature culture of your organization. That's why a good organization is not afraid of the non-conformities. I remember once a client told me at the end, George, the non-conformities you issued is really the value that pays off the money we paid to your accreditation body. Because he understood that through these non-conformities, his company will be better. So we never try to hide the non-conformities. And this applies also to internal audits and third-party audits. If there are non-conformities, let it be and let them be found. So a good assessment does not mean zero non-conformities, because if you hide them, you may get zero non-conformities, but then the assessment is not good because it did not identify the problems, and the problems will still be there, okay? Also, a good assessment does not mean that you need to have non-conformities. So there are different points of view during the process, and you have to remember that, okay? That non-conformities is free expert consulting, and that's why you should be always happy when you have very competent and experienced assessors. So when you choose, for example, PGLA, be sure that the people who are going to come are very experienced and many years in the market. And this is not because we want them to find problems, but this way you can get the best service and the best indirect expert consulting through the identification of any non-conformities, if there are any non-conformities. And if you don't have any non-conformities, congratulations, you have a great system, okay? The worst thing is to have no non-conformities in a system with problems. So it means the assessors are not doing their work well, or you hide things which is against you. I'm trying to help you to build a mature auditing culture. Always remember that, and this is very important to be understood also by the management of the organization, okay? So that's why I say many times, when I see an objective have no non-conformities, okay, it can be there or have less non-conformities than last year, but for me as an auditor does not mean many things. Because this way, you tend during internal audits also to hide non-conformities. So if there are non-conformities in the system, let it be. And if there are problems this year, more than last year, it does not mean that we became worse. Many different circumstances, different technologies, and so on may affect the reason. I am not going to say, okay, last year I had 3 non-conformities, so my quality objective will be to have 2 non-conformities. That's wrong. Because if you have 4 non-conformities and you hide them to make it 2, what is the good about it? It is even worse, okay? So hiding non-conformities is the silent killer, as I say on this in this part of the presentation. It is not advisable to hide the non-conformities, not because you are cheating the process of the audit or that you are cheating in the process of the assessment, but because you don't help your organization. And if the auditor finds out, you lose the trust, okay? So what for? Why to do that, okay? Also, you increase your risk, as I mentioned before, to your clients, that the clients will find out, because if you have non-conformities in the product or the process, sooner or later it will come out the client or the regulators, because many times you may have assessment by regulators, and assessments by regulators are not the same logic, mentality, and culture like the assessments by certification or accreditation bodies. You may have a fine, you may have bad reputation, negative income, and negative impact in reputation, and so on. So act professionally, act mature, show the correct culture, and be serious about the competitiveness and the improvement of your organization. Consider that the whole audit and the whole assessment process, if you are conforming the assessment body, is a mechanism to help you become better, and don't be afraid of non-conformities. And I know that this culture should be also reflected from the management. So it should be a whole corporate company culture about how to handle non-conformities. Now, if you have non-conformities, what you have to do, okay, how to act when you receive a non-conformity. First, listen fully and carefully. I've been in many situations from the moment there is a non-conformity, the auditee is thinking how to debate, how to remove it. Why to remove it if it is a real problem? So your thought should not be how to remove the non-conformity. The problem should be to understand if there is a non-conformity. Now, even if the auditor made a mistake and there is more evidence that this is not a correct non-conformity, listen first. Listen, be sure that you understand what they are talking about. Because sometimes also the standard is not very clear and there are many different interpretations and so on. So be silent for a moment and listen carefully how the auditor, the assessor, is presenting the non-conformity and what it is about. The important thing is not to debate the non-conformity. The important thing is to understand what is the problem. Because if you understand what is the problem, then you have the opportunity to identify the correct reason why it happened and how to close it, how to correct it. So if you don't understand the wording, ask for clarification. So say, I don't understand. What do you mean by that? So ask the auditor to explain you what is the non-conformity about. If you think that it was not a fair assessment, review the evidence with the auditor, with the assessor again, okay? If it is justified, accept it, okay? Usually when you choose a reputable and a good certification or accreditation body, the assessors are knowledgeable. They will not tell you nonsense. But in the case you believe that it is not fair, okay, then you can appeal it. Avoid unnecessary debate. You don't have to show off to your manager, if you are a quality manager, how many things you know, and you are going to fight with the auditors. Don't think this way. This is wrong mentality. Think about the way, is it really a non-conformance? Do you really have a problem? What is the problem? This will help you to close it. It is very important to understand what the auditor says, and from the point of view of the auditor, you know, if it is third-party auditor assessment, they cannot provide consulting. So if they are good auditors, they will not tell you how to close. They will explain you where you missed the standard or the process requirement, and then it is your responsibility to decide how to do it. But in order to decide how to close, you have to understand what is what is the problem. And then when you understand it, you proceed with root cause analysis. Very important. Root cause analysis means true corrective actions, not corrections, because many times as auditors, we see that the company, in order to fast close it, they just do some corrections, but they are not addressing the root cause of the problem. So think this way, the way of why did that happen? Why we had this problem? Try to identify the root cause of the problem and try to correct it, not to satisfy your auditor, not to satisfy your assessor, but not to happen again, because if the problem will not happen again, it will help your company. You will have a better system, better product, better service, and you will not be exposed to clients, regulators, and so on. So don't do the corrective action for the management of the management system for the auditor. Do it for you. And in order to correct something, you have to clearly understand what was the problem about, what is the root cause of the problem. And then, of course, when you identify it, implement the corrective actions. Unfortunately, guys, one of the most common problems we find out in accreditation level is that after the audit, because we are reviewing carefully all the replies to the non-conformities, the proposed corrective actions are corrections and not corrective actions. I believe you understand the difference between correction and the corrective action, okay? Correction is just a surface correction of the problem without addressing the real root of the non-compliance. And many times we are declining we cannot close the findings because we are sending back to the auditee and we are asking them to perform a real root cause analysis. So, but don't do that for the auditor. Don't do that for the assessor. Do it for yourself. Make your company more competitive, make your company better working environment and improvement tool. So help yourself for yourself, not for the auditors. Now, in all these issues I raised, it is very important to understand the management role. When I say management, I mean top management role, the leadership role. And what are the expectations? If you see on the first say, I say commitment, commitment, commitment. For you that you know about real estate, when you're going to buy a good house, the real estate agent will tell you, asking what is important, price, as they say, location, location, location. Where is the house? It is very critical. If you buy it, spend so much money for the future. So for here in management system, it is commitment, commitment, commitment. So management, top management should be committed to the implementation of the management system. And you know that many times top management is not committed because they find it out as a bureaucratic exercise and just they need it for the certificate on the wall, or because a client asked it and they cannot provide their service or product if they are not certified or accredited. So in that case, the implementation of the management system is just a hassle and an expense. But in reality, the implementation of management system, it could be a great tool to manage easier your company, control easier your processes, and provide a compliant and better service or product to your clients. And this way only, you can achieve the commitment. Because if you just feel that the management system is just a pain to comply to some requirements and have a certificate on the wall, you will not provide the appropriate commitment. This means that top management should have a good understanding what are the opportunities of a successful implementation of the management system. And if they don't know, unfortunately, they have to be trained because there's no other way to find out, except you find out by problems. You have many, many problems, complaints from clients, lose markets, and then you have to improve your system, not because the management system is advising you to do so, but because the painful experience of life will draw you to that direction, or you will be out of business. That's the choices. So the moment at least you achieve a critical or a minimum, let's say, commitment, you have to understand the system performance. And also you have to be, as a management, on top of the situation. Yes, I know you have the management representative, but the management representative, for example, when you go to the management reviews, don't make just a management review meeting just to show to the assessor. It is a good opportunity to go through the actual processes and check how the management system is performing, because this is reflecting the performance of your organization. Unfortunately, once again, as an assessor, I see many, I could say not fake, but I could say many management reviews, even internal audits that they are just made to show to the auditor or to show to the assessor, we just did it, but there's no real understanding of the system, there's no real management involvement. Whatever the quality manager prepares, the management will sign and get rid out of me. I have more important things to do. Okay, that's your choice. After all, even if I find a not good management review, if all issues are covered, I cannot issue non-conformity, but the problem is not with me. The problem is with you and your company, because you missed an opportunity to go through some important elements of your processes and achieve improvement. Okay. Another evidence of leadership commitment is provision of the appropriate resources. So in many cases, you see that there are not appropriate instrumentation, the instruments are not calibrated, there are no appropriate resources to have adequate people or competent people. All of this is related to commitment of the top management. So the culture of honesty in a company is very important, related to the dedication to the improvement. Is everybody destined to survive? No. So even if you are certified, even if you are accredited, you can go out of business or you can lose market. The decision is always yours. So as an auditee, you should know that this culture is not responsibility of the certification body or the assessment of accreditation body. It is your responsibility, because your survival is your own business. It's not somebody else's business. So some very secondary, not important issues about the preparation. I'm not going to spend so much time. From the point of view of the assessment and how to facilitate the process, please be ready to provide to your assessors, to your auditors, and clean, organized workspace, if possible, with some privacy. Okay, provide them access to internet, because everybody now needs internet. Many assessment or auditing systems are based on communication to a mainframe or to communication to a shared center and so on, documentation. So be provided, if possible, to give them access to Wi-Fi. I've been to many cases that, for example, we're doing accreditation of testing labs on the site, not on the office, not in the city. Even there, with some cell, with shared network, we can do that. Most of the cases, the assessors are prepared, and our system provides access through our telephone to the shared network, but don't assume that it is there. So be prepared to provide this access to the assessors, to internet access. Believe me, it is more important than what you may think. Also, have prepared a so-called, as I call it, evidence table. Be careful, this is not standard requirement. I will show you an example in the next PowerPoint, and this is also very important for your preparation. So let's make a small break here, not talk about evidence table. We'll talk in a few minutes. Also, always have a liaison to coordinate smoothly with your auditors and assessors, and when they go to different departments of the company, always arrange that somebody is with them. It's not only because of confidentiality issues, it's not because about any other issues, but it is just about a good understanding of the process, and also you are trained through the process. So what I say as an advice is, when you are decided who's going to be the liaison person and accompany the auditor or the assessor of the departments, I would put, if I was in your place, my internal auditors or my trainee internal auditors. So they will be trained also on the process from experienced auditors or assessors, and also prepare with a briefing, not only 24 hours in advance, but even earlier, your people, what they should expect through this process. Now, this is the so-called evidence table. So I would say, for example, what are the objective evidence that should be expected on different clauses of the standard? Be careful, don't take it wrong. It's not a standard requirement, it's not an assessment requirement, this is just that can help you, that's all. So you will know exactly what is the type of the evidence of different clause, what is the evidence description, where is it located, and who is responsible, because usually the auditor and the assessor is going to ask for all this information. So this can facilitate you to be well prepared. It's not a requirement, it's just a good advice, that's all. So typical mistakes auditees make. Searching for document in panic. Don't worry, take your time, be calm. Letting unprepared staff respond. As I told you, the people should respond, but if the people they don't know, you may ask the assessor, you know, or probably we have to talk to the department manager and so on. Now, if the people don't know, you will not avoid that. So the assessor will find out, okay? You cannot hide it. I don't say you to hide it. I just say that if you understand that something is not correctly said, you can say that also the local manager, the technical person, can reply to this question, okay, in a kind way, of course. Don't get answers. We explained that before. Don't treat non-conformities as punishment. We explained that before. Ask for clarifications. So don't be afraid to ask for clarifications. Also, during assessment, we say, oh, we didn't do that because George, who was here before, he was not performing, or he didn't want to support, and he left the company and he took the records with him. Oh, we are listening all these excuses all the time. So don't blame past staff. You are responsible to provide the evidence, okay? Don't be over defensive. There's no reason. You don't help anything. And say, oh, you know, we always did like this and we never had a problem. Okay, that's not a mentality of a management system approach. Because if there was no problem, it does not mean it will not happen again, okay, or it will not be a problem. So good practices, on the other hand. Give clear answers, have your evidence ready, behave professionally all the time, be transparent, you have nothing to hide. Even if there is a problem, let them find it, you have an opportunity to correct it. Have an active leadership and prepare your leadership and help your leadership to be committed. Have your records clean, easily accessible. Inform your people. Update your documentation and think always with the logic of management system. So assessment, as I told you before, the audit is a professional partnership. It's not a confrontation. It's not a debate exercise. So finally, because our time is over, the successful assessment is built on preparation, good preparation from your part, clarity, transparency, strong management system and culture, open communication, build bridges of communication, achieve understanding, and if you cannot understand, ask for clarification, and definitely professionalism. When approached correctly, the assessment becomes a real, solid improvement tool for organization. Thank you very much. I extended a little bit my time, but I would be happy to check now the screen if there are any questions, to reply to them. And there is also a question area on your screen. You can type your questions if any. There is one point. Hello, thank you for this platform. I will prepare my first assessment this coming year. It comes at the right moment. Can I have witnessing internal audits and also external ones from clients. My question comes from the part of analysis, how to close them. Okay, many questions. What I want to say is that build up your experience, participate in trainings like this. If you have associated companies or corporations, they perform internal audits, ask to participate in actual internal audits as an observer, even participate as observer in third-party audits, increase your exposition to conformity assessment world, attend courses, read books, improve yourself. You will never stop improving yourself. Even now, I'm talking to you, as I told you, 30, 40 years in conformity assessment. I attend courses, I attend seminars, read different publications. So the improvement process never stops. You start now, you have a long way, and always try to do your best. We are very fortunate now with all this internet, web, and so on. You can have access to many different resources. Try to evaluate them, and you can always contact me. Regarding this presentation, I will be happy myself and our department in the company PGLA that we organize these webinars to provide you a copy of the presentation. So you can kindly request a copy either from where you registered, or you see here on this PowerPoint my email. You can send me an email, ask me the presentation, I will send it to you. It's not top secret, it's not hidden thing, it is information we will be happy to share with you and improve you in the process of getting a more successful management system. I don't see any other questions here. I would like to thank you for your attendance, for your patience, all this hour to be with me. I hope you got some interesting tips. I hope this webinar will help you to get a better audit or assessment next time. Even if you want to some of your colleagues or your friends to go through this webinar and they had the opportunity to attend now, it will be uploaded in our PGLA site as a YouTube in a few days as a YouTube file. So come back after a few days in our website, and you will find out in the training webinars area there will be the YouTube version of it. And also you can find, this is the ninth event. You can find also many more opportunities, many more webinars to improve yourself in our website from previous presentations, not only my presentation, but also from other experts from PGLA. Once again, thank you very much for your participation, and always feel free to contact me at my email that you can see in the screen for any questions you may have, any quotation you may need. We will be happy to work with you and accredit your organization if you are working in the conformity assessment world. Best regards from Troy, Michigan, and good evening, good morning, and good afternoon, depending on what area of the world you are located. Bye-bye and take care, everybody. Thank you.